Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Thrive PhD AcWriMo. We'll never get over how much I hate saying that word out loud. The AcWriMo Midway check-in webinar. I am so excited to be here. I am so excited to host this for you. I have had a lot of really good questions come in, but make sure that you know that if you're here joining us live, you can always throw questions into the chat button along the side. I will answer as many of those as I can. I did also get some emails come in over Twitter, some messages in Slack, and I'm really excited to talk about what it's like here in the middle of November. So the first thing I want to say is that if you are anything like me, the first half of your November did not go as planned. As you might have noticed in the first webinar, I was really sick for the first, almost week of November. And then by the time I was starting to feel better, it was the time of the month where I get a flare of my chronic illness. So I have a hormonally dependent chronic illness that knocks me out about a week a month. So here we are on November 15th, and I have had very few good days where I felt like I crushed it, things where I made a to-do list and checked off every single item. That hasn't really been the name of the game for me. And I know from conversations we've had in Slack and things I've seen on Twitter that some of you might have also not had the November that you were planning on. So as the subject email of yesterday's subject line of yesterday's email says, I think that it's time for all of us to reset, refocus, and recalibrate. So I'm going to be walking through those three ideas sort of step by step. If you prefer, I did share even more strategies for how to do all of these things, especially resetting, in the email that went out this week. So if you haven't gotten that, make sure you check your inbox. I'm always happy to send it again, but it sometimes gets caught up in the promotions tab. So do check in on that. But the first thing that I want to say is that we can all reset. All of us get as many resets as we want. I know so many times it can feel so frustrating to start again. I have to remake my to-do list. I have to remake my monthly schedule. I have to reset my goals. I have to recalculate how many words a day I need in order to meet these goals. And I am just tired. I don't want to do it. And trust me, I know that feeling. I know that feeling deep, deep, deep in my bones. But I think a lot of that frustration can come from not the fact that we got off schedule, or not really disappointment in ourselves, but the fact that we wanted the plan to keep us safe and it didn't. So the most detailed AcWriMo monthly calendar goal setting milestone sheet can't prevent you from getting the flu. It can't prevent you from having to take care of sick kids or sick family members. It can't prevent you from having your computer crash. It can't prevent you from having issues with your data collection. The plan doesn't stop life from happening, which is so disappointing. And even if you had nothing catastrophic happen, even if you are just feeling a little bit of a drag, the plan is a good milestone, but it isn't going to ensure that if you just abide by it, nothing will happen. So the first thing to acknowledge when we're doing a reset is that it's okay to have to reset. It's okay that the plan didn't keep us safe. It's okay that we're a little bit off track. One of the tenets that we use in the community that I run, Thrive PhD, is that a 60% day is a good day. And we often hold ourselves to the 100% mark. So many of us are in grad school, many of us are in academics because we were really good at school, and really good is a 95 or above. I once had a client that was like, oh, I do tolerate failure. An A- is fine with me. And I laughed a deep self-recognition laugh, because how many of us are saying, okay, well, an A- is a failure, an A is expected, an A+, I guess, would be a really good goal. And so if you're holding yourself to that 95 or above label every single day, of course it's really frustrating when things happen and then all of a sudden it's 1 p.m. and you are nowhere near the pace you wanted to get for that day's work. So the first thing when we talk about resetting is it's okay to not have accomplished 100% of your days so far. It's okay to only get 60. But if the only choices that we offer ourselves are, I'm either going to do this 100% perfectly or I'm not going to do it at all, then quickly those zeros start to add up. And so, say you only did 10 days this month where you got 100% of your work done. Great, that's 10 awesome days. But if you didn't let yourself start, or you didn't count those other 20 days, of maybe 10% effort, then those 10 perfect days get averaged out. And you might not make the goals. But if you say every day, I'm going to aim for 60%, and if I get more than 60%, awesome, I'm a superstar. But 60% every day is going to add up so much faster than a bounce between I did this day perfectly and then I gave up at 10 a.m. because this day was totally off the rails. So my first point of advice is aim for the 60. And if you get more than the 60, that's great. But it's one of the ways that we can condition ourselves out of this sort of perfectionist thinking that says that unless I stuck to my schedule, unless I got every single one of those words down, it wasn't a good day. Because anytime we tell ourselves it wasn't a good day, it's another day, it's another stone that we have to carry when we sit down at our desk. The second tip that I have for resetting is to reset the slate in a clean way. Lots of us will say, and you can imagine the scenario. So say you are a person and you said, I'm going to try and hit 4 POMs, so 4 25-minute work sessions every single day this week. And Monday, you do it, 4 POMs, you check it off. Tuesday, you get to 2, and then you get an emergency email in your inbox, and the rest of the day is off the rails. Do you carry those 2 POMs over to next day, Wednesday, and say, okay, I need to get 6 POMs today to get back on schedule? And so you sit down on Wednesday, and not only do you have all of the pressure of today's POMs, you have the 2 left over from yesterday, and you say, okay, I have to now fit 33% more work in, but I'm going to do it. And so you only get to 3 before you're exhausted because that emergency yesterday really took it out of you. So you're fine. You say, okay, I got 3 today. That brings me down to 3. So I'll put those 3 on top of my 4 for tomorrow. And now I only have to do 7 POMs on Thursday to catch up. And then 7 POMs feel so overwhelming that you get halfway through your first one and you totally space out. You take an anxiety nap, you go on Netflix, you start ferociously cleaning your refrigerator out. And then you say, you know, that's fine. I'll just take these 7 POMs and I'll roll them over onto Friday. And if I just get 11, I can finish off the day really strong. But 11 POMs is almost 6 hours of work without a break. So 6 hours on top of your really busy schedule. And then what? You run into the weekend and you're totally crashed. So if you're going to give yourself the reset, if you're going to say, you know what, today I'm going to start from scratch, maybe consider clearing out that debt that you have, the POM debt, the word count debt, and say, okay, I know that in order to meet my weekly goal, I wanted to do 4 a day, but I'm just going to focus on my 4 today. And if I do more than that, that's great, but I'm only holding myself to those 4. The reset doesn't really feel like a reset if we're giving ourselves a fresh start, but then also holding ourselves accountable for all of the things that didn't go to plan on the days before. So if you're going to wipe the slate clean, really wipe it clean. And I promise you that 4 will be back to feeling more manageable as opposed to constantly having those POMs that roll over. The second is to do whatever you need to do to make that feel like a fresh energy. So I know that so many people get so excited when the planning tools come out for AcWriMo because they sit down, they've got their calendar, they make their goals, they calculate it, and it feels really exciting to imagine these are my goals and this is the steps that I'm going to take to get there, and here's how I'm going to structure all this time out. It's that New Year's Eve feeling. It's that sense that anything is possible because November is a new month. Well, if you need it to be, today is your new month. I call it November, and it's yours. So let today have all of the trappings of a fresh new month if you need that. Maybe you start on a completely new bullet journal page just so that you can have that sense of starting over. Maybe you start a new color in your calendar. Maybe you start a new tracking sheet. Maybe you update in the accountability chart and say, you know what, I did my best, but my month started again on November 15th. But think about what things made the beginning of this month feel so powerful, and then see if you can incorporate them into your restart. Okay, so the next point after restarting is refocusing. And I can't tell you how many clients I have, and me included, that really struggle, really struggle with staying focused. And after a couple of years working with clients, after even longer teaching undergrads, I've come to realize that the fact that none of us can focus is not the personal failing that we've all thought it was. I know that anytime I surface from an Instagram haze and I realize that all I have done in the last hour is look at pictures of people decorating sugar cookies, which is my own personal vice. I enjoy watching people decorate sugar cookies with royal icing on Instagram with the sound off. That's so every time I surface from one of those fugue states, I feel really bad about it. I'm like, you have a PhD, you are a coach, you work with people on their focus, and you lost an entire hour watching people make cookies shaped like turkeys. And of course, I feel bad about that. But then I remember that Instagram was designed to keep me scrolling, that it is every instinct that I have to get that dopamine hit, to hear it, to be relaxing. It's coded into that app, and it's coded into my phone and into my behaviors. So yes, it is an issue of whether or not I helped myself into looking at it, but it's not my fault necessarily that these things are addictive, because they're meant to be that way. Twitter is the same way. Our emails are the same way. Anytime you see a notification button, there's a little bit of dopamine that releases into your brain that says, check this, you're wanted, somebody needs you. So of course it's really hard to fight that dopamine hit. And you can spend a lot of time and energy trying to will yourself to overcome generations of tech and modern life distractions so that you can focus. Or you could just put a blocker on your phone, which is what I do. So I say, okay, I could either spend all of my time and effort today trying not to look at Twitter, or I can just block it for the next 2 hours and see what happens. Maybe some of my favorite apps for this are Forest, which I can link to in the show notes. So Forest, you set a time, and then in order to use your phone or to use your internet browser during that time, you have to kill a tree. And I feel very badly when I kill a tree, and so I won't do it. Forest is a great app. There's all kinds of other ones. There's things that you can set up with your router that blocks certain websites. I know of people who have their spouses change the Wi-Fi password and refuse to give it to them if they need to focus at work. Whatever needs to happen for you to be able to set up the ideal conditions. But make it easy for yourself to focus. So if you know that it's really hard for you to focus on your writing when your email is open, close your email. There's no shame in needing to take steps to intervene in what makes it harder for us to focus. Maybe it means that you get all of your snacks planned out in the beginning of the day. The second thing that really helps me focus is to have a place to capture all of my brain's thoughts and activities as they're swirling around. So I know that I was very frustrated in the first couple of years of my mindfulness practice because the instructor would tell me to clear my mind, and I believe that I am constitutionally incapable of clearing my mind. I don't think it happens for me. I don't think I have a blank mind. So I think about it more as, how can I turn the volume down on some of those running thoughts and turn the volume up on what I'm trying to focus on? So my most important ally in the quest to turn the volume down on my running commentary of brain activity are Post-it notes. I have them all over my desk. Here's a whole bunch of them from earlier, but I will, they're my compromise with myself. So yes, I'm focusing on my writing. Yes, things are blocked, but I have a Post-it note right there and a pen that's open and ready to go so that I can write down whatever very important thought it is that I need to capture, whether that's what I'm planning to eat for lunch, or that I need to schedule a dentist appointment, or that I need to remember to clean the bathroom, whatever it is. I write it on a Post-it note so that it doesn't go anywhere. I don't lose that thought, and then I can invite myself back into my work. So other clients I know that don't want to be wasteful with Post-it notes, and I'm working on trying to find a digital way to do this, but then it's a different trap because if I open up the Notes app on my phone, then we're off to the races and I'm on my phone. So maybe it's a notebook that you keep things in, maybe it's a Google document, maybe it's sticky notes on your computer, but thinking about where you can dump all of those thoughts that are begging you to not focus on your work so that you don't lose them, but you can engage with them when you're ready to. So those are my two best strategies for refocusing. And then the third is the part that I think most people skip because it's really hard to think about this. So maybe you're having a really, really good November. You're crushing your goals. You set 4 goals and 2 of them are done already and you are right on track. So many of us are in that spot and that's amazing, but everybody can take some steps and see if there's anything that needs to be recalibrated. So check in with your energy levels. Are you sacrificing sleep in order to get those extra AcWriMo minutes done during the day? Are you skimping on taking care of yourself? Maybe you've skipped a few workouts, maybe you have gotten takeout a little bit more. And there's no shame in any of that. I'm not here to say I had takeout dinner last night because I was prepping for this webinar and I had no way that I was going to make dinner. And so all of us do things to help manage our energy. But the secret is, are you paying attention to what those things are so that you can make tiny adjustments now instead of have to recover from a big crash later? So I know that I need 7 hours of sleep no matter what. I can survive on 6. I'm okay for a day or 2 on 5, but I really need 7. So one of the things that I pay attention to is how much sleep have I gotten this week? Because if I've gotten, 4 nights of 6 hours and below, you better believe that a crash is coming. And I know that I have to pay attention over the weekend to catch back up, or I'm really going to suffer the next week. So it's about saying, how can I take care of myself in little ways so that I address the sleep debt that I have when I'm only missing about 3 hours, instead of saying, okay, I just did 10 days of 5 hours and below, and now I am sick and tired and I need to crash and sleep for the whole weekend. So paying attention to what things you are maybe cutting out, what things don't feel like they're resonating as well, paying attention to your energy levels so that you can recalibrate now. It's a lot easier to catch up on 1 or 2 hours of missing sleep than it is to catch up on 12 or 13. It's a lot easier to make a few adjustments when you start to feel a cold coming on and give yourself a little bit of extra sleep and a little bit of extra vitamin C than it is to recover from the flu when you're down for 2 weeks. So pay attention, even if things are going well. What things could be better? What things could you support? What things are sort of dropping out of your support system that a little bit of attention now in the middle of the month will help you really make it through the last 2 weeks in a solid, sustained way. Okay, so those are the sort of reset, refocus, recalibrate goals. And again, there are many, many more techniques, especially for refocusing and resetting in this week's email. So check those out. But next, I want to answer a few questions that I've gotten. So one of the questions came through and it said, how can I reset after an illness or a family emergency? So it wasn't something that I planned and it totally torpedoed a whole week of my AcWriMo. And I want to just give up, but I know that refocusing will help me. So the first thing I would say is that it's really important to cut yourself some slack. That if there was something that took you away, maybe it was an illness in the family, maybe it was something that you had to take care of, maybe it was an emergency, something you didn't see coming, there is no part of me that wants to say, how dare you? It was AcWriMo. When people need you, they need you. And I can't promise because that's an absolute statement. I have never had a client say to me, I regret taking time to take care of or be with people that are important to me because of my writing goals. Your writing will wait. Your ideas will wait. Your knowledge will wait. It's important to be with the people and the things that make our lives feel full, even if it's AcWriMo, especially if it's AcWriMo, because that is That's what it's about. Making our writing goals is amazing. Being with people who we love that need us is even more amazing. So the first thing I would say about resetting is that think about it in the beginning like a re-entry phase. When I travel, especially if I'm going across time zones and I'm jet lagged, I give myself a whole day for what I call re-entry. So I clean up my house. I clean through my refrigerator. I go through my emails and see triage and see what needs to be dealt with. I reset my planner. But that first re-entry day, I normally don't do a lot of writing. And that's okay because my brain is still adjusting to being back at my desk. But I find that forcing ourselves into 100% focus and productivity that first day, especially if we've been going through something that's emotionally heavy or intense, is a recipe for disaster because you're not focused. You have a lot of things that are pressing on you, and you haven't really taken the time to land back at your desk. It's sort of like you crash landed, and then everything is on fire, and you're just expecting that things will be the way that they meant to be. So I would say that if you're going to reset after an illness or after something that really take you away, to think about it at first like re-entry, and then to focus on that 60% mark. So how can I get 60% of what I want to do done? How can I work on what feels easy to get the wheels moving again, and then keep moving down the road? The motto that I use with some of my clients sometimes is I'm going to work on what I can when I can. So if all you feel up to is grading student papers, then that's all you feel up to. Grading student papers is important. It gets it off your desk. And eventually when you do feel ready to start writing again, those won't be hanging out over your head. So give yourself some space to kind of take stock and reevaluate, maybe make a new plan, and then work on what feels the easiest. There is nothing more demotivating than forcing yourself into the hardest task on your to-do list when you're feeling really depleted. So just know that life continues before, during, and after AcWriMo, and there's no shame and no guilt in dropping things in order to be with people who are important for us. And it's important to offer yourself that same sense of care when you do get back to your desk. Okay, the second question that I got was from somebody who is working and showing up and doing their goals, but they're feeling frustrated because it's November 15th and nothing is checked off. And I'm sure that almost all of us know this feeling where you're working on something huge, like a dissertation proposal or a book proposal or a dissertation chapter, and all you feel like you've done is research or move words around or work on your outline. And it can be really, really demotivating to say, okay, like my goal was to write 10,000 words this month and I've maybe written 100, but I've also done all of this research, I've done all of this grading. So the first thing I would say is to find a way to measure the time that you are putting in. I know that in the Slack channel, some people have been posting pictures of their rainbow time trackers, and I love this technique for anybody who's working in phases of writing that aren't easily measured by word count. So word counts can be really great because they're super concrete and they're easy to measure, but they're also really demotivating if you're in a part of the project that just doesn't have a lot of new words every day. So one technique that is really fun is to take a bullet journal or a Google Sheet spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet and to color in one box or one cell every time that you finish a poem. So I know that some people have been working through really complex gradients. It's really motivating to get into a new color of the spectrum. Maybe you alternate it. Maybe you're drawing pictures of a flamingo inside of your thing. But to physically see a representation of all the time that you've put in so far can feel really, really good, especially if some of the other metrics aren't as encouraging. The other technique I have that is really useful is what I call a done list. So a done list is the opposite of a to-do list. So if a to-do list is everything that you still need to do, a done list is everything that you've done. Um, and it sounds kind of silly to make a list of things that are already done, but for our brains that automatically want to jump to what thing is coming next, what thing still isn't done yet, that never, our brains don't naturally want to stop and give us credit for what we've done already. We're naturally forward looking creatures. So a done list can be a chance to pause and say, these are all the things that I've already done. I I tracked down 18 sources. I read 600 pages of material. I formatted 150 footnotes. I responded to 18 emails. I graded 300 pages of student work. But even if it's not AcWriMo specific, making a done list can help you see that it's not that you are ignoring your AcWriMo and not doing anything else. It's just that you're in a phase where you're doing a lot of other supporting tasks. Or there are other parts of your life that really needed attention. But giving yourself credit for the stuff that you've already done can be a really effective way to concretely write down on a piece of paper or see in a place that's external to yourself, all of the things that you are moving through, especially when your brain is trying to tell you that you're just not getting enough done. So just sort of sum up with that. If you are feeling stuck in the weeds, if you feel like you're just not moving, assessing what you've already been done can be really helpful. If there are any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I can see those. If you have other questions coming in, I am going to take a sip of my tea and then answer one more. That came through over Twitter. So the last question that I got over Twitter was somebody who was curious about how to make new AcWriMo goals when it was clear that what they had planned on doing this month wasn't going to happen, and whether they were feeling really bad about that. I am the queen of making new goals. I think it's really helpful to make new goals. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And this is the sort of logic that I use with myself and my clients. The first thing I would say is that none of us can predict the future, and sometimes you just don't know what the problems are going to be. So good researchers, good writers don't blindly ignore what their subjects or their research or their data are telling them in order to write the paper that they envisioned. Ethical researchers write up the data that they have, however that looks. So to me, that's the same framework that I use with my goals. I set my goals with the best information and data that I have at the time. So on October 31st, this was my best guess of what I would be able to do this month. It was my best guess of how much time I would have available for it. And I can't predict the future, but it was my best shot. And now at November 15th, I have a much better understanding of where my time and energy is going to be going this month. So it's time for me to adjust those goals, not because what I did was wrong, but because it's going to be more helpful for me to work in a set of goals that reflect the accurate conditions of the November I'm having than to keep pushing myself towards goals that were the November that I imagined. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing less or that you're doing something wrong or that you're doing even a bad thing. It just means that sometimes our focus shifts. I know that one of my AcWriMo goals inside of the sheet was that I wanted to release 4 courses. And I got one out, and that's great. It's a how to write a dissertation course if you're interested in it. But I know that I'm not going to get 3 other courses done. And part of that is because it's November 15th, and that's a lot of time that I might not necessarily have. But also it's because some other projects have come up, and it's really important for me to reallocate some of my resources and focus on these things that newly have a deadline that they didn't have when I was making this plan on October 28th. So it doesn't mean I'm doing less. It just means that I'm following where the energy is. One of my colleagues and friends, Sarah Langworthy, talks about it in exactly those terms, that I'm following what I'm most excited about, what I'm most energized with. And not all of us have the luxury to do that all the time. Like, I very rarely feel energized by doing my budgets and my bookkeeping. So it doesn't mean that I get a pass to ignore those important tasks. But it does mean that if I'm working on projects and I'm forcing myself to work on things that aren't energizing to me, that don't feel like they're moving my project forward, then that's a really good sign that I need to check in with myself and say, okay, what about this feels so sticky? Is it something that I can address? Maybe it's that you're working with a theoretical frame that you thought was going to be perfect until you got in and really sort of started digging, and it isn't. And you're forcing yourself to keep using this framework that doesn't feel useful anymore. That's okay. It's okay to let things go in order to move into what's actually being reflected. So AcWriMo is hard. It's hard to show up. It's hard to make a commitment to ourselves. And I think that as hard as it is to set those initial goals, it's really hard to be here in the middle of the month and say, okay, what do I need to adjust? What can I recalibrate? What choices can I make moving forward so that the rest of this month feels like it's sustainable? Because I promise you that if you push with no regard towards your human body or your personal life or the sort of things that are yelling out to you and saying, I'm a whole person, then you're going to land on December 1st and you might have accomplished all of your writing goals, but you might also be sick or tired or completely overwhelmed, and you'll need to bounce back from that. So showing up in a sustainable way, rewriting your goals, refocusing, resetting when you need to, can help you finish this month in a way that feels strong, that helps you understand what skills and tools you can take moving forward to take this energy of a special month like AcWriMo and move it into your everyday writing practice. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm active in our Slack room. I'm available over email. You can always DM me. I'm really excited to be holding this space for you. And I'm hopeful that we're all going to finish the rest of this month off really strong. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.